Hey there, comics friends and fiends. Rob here, and I have the video that we have been talking about. This is the CGC, CBCS, PGX, EGS comparison video. So let me kind of talk to you a second about this video and what the intent is, the inspiration, etc. And then we'll get into the details here, because that's what you really want. You don't want to hear me babble. So about in 2018, um, I had already been back into comics. I originally started collecting comics back in the 90s, and or late 80s, early 90s. Got out of it when I got married, and then sometime when my son was 6 or 7 and started reading, I thought it would encourage him to read more, and I didn't care whether it was graphic or not. So we went to the comic book store and started getting some comics for him, and I kind of got back into it and started rebuilding my collection and doing comics. And about 2018, my sister and I went to the Silicon Valley Comic Con, because we live in the Silicon Valley area, and there I acquired two slabbed books. They were my very first slabbed books I've ever owned. And in case you're watching this and you have no idea what slabbed means, that's just kind of slang for any book that you have had graded and it's encased in this hard plastic encasing that preserves the book. Hence, it's slabbed. So I got my first two slab books there, Guardians of the Galaxy #1, which of course was hot at the time, and the Wolverine miniseries issue #1. And I had those two slab books, and I was really excited about them. And that kind of got me down this path of, wow, I really like the way that this looks, hanging on a wall, preserving the art, etc., especially on older books. And so I started kind of going through my collection, and I started looking to get some books preserved. And took my first batch, not knowing anything about grading services other than the two I got were, of course, CGC. I knew about CGC. I looked them on their website, and it required this membership and all this other stuff. And I was like, oh, I don't really want to do a membership. So what do I do? Oh, well, I can go to my local comic book shop. So I went down to my LCS, and they helped facilitate my first order that went in, and I sent my books in, and that was really nice because, especially somebody new, the LCS helped me to look at the books and determine, okay, yeah, this one will grade fine just the way it is, or hey, this one here may need a pressing, and that will help it. This one you can have it pressed, but that'll help this part, but this has a color break. And so they were able to help me identify things that, as a novice, I had no idea about on the book, whether, what kind of grade I might expect it to be, anything else. So, as a early beginner, that was very helpful to me. The friends at my local comic book shop providing me that guidance. Um, and I sent my books in, and those books, some of them took 3 months. There was two different submission forms, because one was a set that was being pressed and one was a set that was not being pressed. The ones that didn't need to be pressed came back within 3 months, and the ones that were had to be pressed, it took 6 months for those books to come back, and I was a little disappointed that it took so long. I was excited with the grades. I got a lot. I think everything I sent in, I ended up getting 9.8s on, except for my Batman Beyond issue 1 promo copy, which was like a 9.4. I'd have to go back and look at those, but I'm pretty sure that was what it was. All 9.8s except for the 1.94. So I was happy with the grades, but not thrilled with the turnaround time. And so I started kind of looking around and started doing some more education and stuff. And that's when I started down the path of finding, other grading companies like PGX and CBCS, and started doing reviews and research. And watching a lot of videos, and of course the problem is a lot of the videos that exist here on YouTube, they either are very opinion based or don't use a lot of real good science. There's a lot of videos of people claiming to compare the grading companies, and they take a book and another book and they compare the two, and either they're different books or they take a book out of one and they send it, crack it open and send it to another company, and it comes back the same or different, and make some kind of comparison based on that. If we're lucky, they don't have the book pressed or anything. And in some cases, I would see people take books that were graded raw and unpressed and then send them in to another service, have them pressed, and come back with a higher grade and say that, the other grading service sucked, or that that this other one was too forgiving because look how much it raised up, or and it's silliness. um the fact of the matter is that when it comes to science, there is no science when it comes to grading. It's purely subjective. There's a scale and a guide, yes, and but once you get outside of determining whether or not something's probably a 10, a 9,998, where it's very clearly defined. Some of those like, oh, it's, there's not a single flaw, or there is. Well, if we start getting into the realm of what's a 7.5, a 6.5, a 7, a 6.5, 6, 5.5. I mean, some of these books where in this range where there starts to become various amounts of heavy usage on it, it's kind of hard to really say, is this a 4? Is this a 4 or is it a 5? Um, at least for me. And I gotta imagine that as a professional grader, some of them get a little gray on there too. You can see there's a range that it could fall into, um, depending upon how you want to interpret those rules. So it's subjective at the end of the day. The only way that if you wanted to truly do a comparison, you would have to sit there and take books and send them over and over and over and over and over again, and really kind of get over a period of time. One time grading does not constitute the reality of the world. So, anyways, the intent of this now was to try to get away from that. I now have used all the grading services. Now, I do, full disclosure, I do use PGX predominantly for myself and for my reasons, but I do still use other services. And which service you choose to use really should be, at the end of the day, it's a personal decision, and probably are going to use multiples. You're probably not going to be 100% with just one. There just happens to be one that becomes your predominant for the most part, probably. And this video's intent is to be a factual, educational, with no bias type thing. Um, Presentation. So without further ado, we'll get into this. We'll get into the slide deck, which I'm going to also link by the way. I put together a slide presentation that we're going to go through, and a link in the description below will be actually a link to this file, so you can actually get this deck if you want to review it on your own. You're welcome to do so. Right. Also, while you're at it, while you're down there looking at that link, why don't you go ahead and hit that like button? Let me know that you like the video, and uh, subscribe. What the hell, At 100 subscriptions, I'm going to go ahead and do a giveaway to a lucky subscriber, and get them a 9.8 graded slab sent out their way. So let's go ahead and kick this thing off with our CBCS, CGC, EGS, PGX comparison video. First things first, we need to talk about what this guide is. This guide is intended to be an educational, factual presentation of the services, costs, lead times, etc. of these independent grading services. It's meant to be just kind of bring this all into one place so that you can take a look at it all and decide for yourself what works for you and what may not work for you. With the exception of PGX, I've taken screenshots from each of the services' websites to represent their services and pricing. The reason PGX is not done in that manner is simply that they've spread their information across multiple pages on their website, making it too difficult to present in that manner. So I've consolidated it into a single chart. In instances where pricing, lead times were not clear, as much as possible, I got the answers from the services directly themselves by reaching out to their customer service. In some cases, there
there are questions which I will call out during the course of this video that I was unable to get the answers to, and I'm hoping that maybe you viewers can leave your comments below and let us know if you have the answer. This guide is not intended to be any kind of endorsement or an evaluation of one service over another. It's simply a presentation of the services offered and the pricing and timelines to use those so that you can make an educated decision on which service you would like to go with. In no way am I affiliated with any of these grading services, a competitor of them, or within the comic book or collectibles industry. I receive no payments, free services, discounts, or anything that's not available to you, a member of the general public, as it relates to these grading service providers. Additionally, I receive no money from YouTube. This channel's not funded, supported, or anything else. This is just basically a blog for me to sit here and enjoy myself and keep my sanity during this COVID time. As I always say, the decision is yours. You should do what you want. I'm just a fat man with a fat stack of comics and a fat opinion. That being said, let's take a look at the services that are involved here. With CBCS, we have our different pricing services here, depending upon whether or not it's a modern book, a Silver Age book, etc., and based on value of the book from a fair market value standpoint, as well as based on whether or not you have a membership with them or not. So they have their various pricing tiers, anywhere from as low as $16 for members or $18 for non-members on up. As you can see, whether you're going whether it's a modern, silver, whether or not the value is increasing, and as the value increases into the really high end, they're going to also give you some expedited shipping along that, as well as to all the way to the next day, where it's strictly straight based off of the value of the book. And then with that pricing on top, there's also going to be various add-on services. You're going to have whether or not you want a signature add-on service, if it's a witnessed book, and this will give you their yellow label. If you have a book that is witnessed by a CBCS that's as it's signed by the artist or whatever, then you're going to be able to get that label. If you have a book that's pre-existing, been signed, maybe you have a COA, maybe you don't, whatever, you can have that book authenticated. CBCS is going to use the Beckett grading verification signature service, and it's going to get a pink label. But for $25, they'll go ahead and authenticate signature, and then it's far better than the COA, because a lot of those COAs don't necessarily link that certificate of authenticity to that book specifically. This has been a big problem. A lot of COAs, I've seen them range from at least calling out what the book is and who the artist is, to some COAs that simply say that this particular shop, ABC Comics, validates that the signature on this book is authentic. It doesn't name the artist, it doesn't name the book, it's just a piece of paper that's thrown in there and really is completely meaningless. So the authentic signature, especially from a collector standpoint, is going to be really kind of important on that aspect. They'll do imaging, take the image, make a digital copy, or make an entire slideshow out of the whole book, which is nice if you have an older book and you want to be able to read it still, or have this digital copy, since once you've encapsulated it, it's sealed for all intents and purposes, although you can get probably most books via online through Comixology or some other digital comics format, Marvel or DC Direct, whatever. So, there's that. Pressing is the big thing you'll hear a lot of people talking about, and that is when you have your book that may have developed some spine curl from the way books stack, or various wrinkles or whatnot in the cover from based on storage or whatnot. Pressing can eliminate a lot of those. So having a book pressed and or in some cases also cleaned on older books can really increase the grade that the book receives. So here's they're going to have their pressing services from starting at $12 on a modern book, and then you see it says screen. That is their pre-screening to determine whether or not it's done. Maybe you don't know if the pressing is going to help the book at all, or if it would benefit from it, and you don't necessarily want to spend $12 on every book just in case it needs it. So you can have them screen it. for $5, they'll go ahead and check to see whether or not the book would benefit from a screening. If it does, then that $5 will apply towards the $12 pressing fee, so you'll only pay $12. If it won't, they won't press the book, and you'll only get charged $5. So it can save you a little bit of money, especially when you start going on to the faster turnaround times or some of the more expensive options there. So that's where pressing is going to come into play. When we look at the big snapshot here, we can take a look at now when we look at membership and the different tiers. So CBCS has 3 different tiers of membership for the average Joe Blow. There's a dealer membership, which we won't really get into, and there's a free membership, which again probably won't talk about as much here. Other than that's where free is you're not a member. So that's going to be your $18 charge for grading on a book. As a paid member, you do receive a discount, and you would only pay $16 on that same modern book to have it pressed, so you save a little bit of money. Additionally, you're eligible for their rewards program, which gets you 2 points for every dollar you spend, and after a certain number of points you can get discounts off your grading services, as well as you'll get some additional e-coupons. Once you go beyond the $100 price point, here's where I don't understand what the value is. I've asked CBCS, and aside from them saying it depends upon what you're sending in, which doesn't help me much because this doesn't show much information, they've really gone silent. I've asked for additional clarifications, and they've not been able to delineate for me what the benefit is at silver and gold. The pricing for grading is exactly the same. The only difference seems to be the e-coupons that you get, and that, depending upon what exactly those e-coupons are, may or may not be of value. Now, it seems to me, if I'm reading it on the gold, since there doesn't seem to be a quantity on it, maybe you always get 2 for 1 on 1 day service, in which case, if you're a flipper or a comic book shop or something else where you want to have these things, or speculator, you want to get a book and flip them out as quick as possible, well, then that gold level might come into play if in fact the 2 for 1 is unlimited. I don't know. Again, CBCS went silent on me. If you do know the answer, though, please go and post it down below in the comment section. I'd love to hear from you. Maybe you are a member at this level and can provide that information that CBCS won't provide. Taking a look now at CGC, their membership levels we'll get into as well in a moment, but we'll take a look just straight up here at their services. So they have essentially their CGC grading service. This is going to be for books that are not being signed by an artist or witnessed. You get your blue label book essentially. So it's $20 per book with a 20-day turnaround time and $10 extra for fast tracking. Right? And then that scales up again depending upon the value of the book, the age of the book, whether it's a silver age or not, the fair market value of the book at the time, turnaround time, etc. You can they all offer a reholder service, which is basically putting in a book that's currently slabbed and putting into another slab, and that can happen if you drop a book and it gets cracked or damaged or something. You might want to have that redone into a new holder for you. Pre-screen, they're going to go ahead and charge you $5, and that is you can set the book at which grade at which you're willing to accept a graded book. So you submit books to them. You say, please only grade it if it's a 9.2 or higher. So anything that they look at, they'll look at the book. If they see it's going to be a 9.2 or higher, they'll go ahead and go through the process of encapsulating the book and everything else and charging you the $20 for it. If, however, the book does not meet that grade, then they're only going to charge you $5 and they'll return the book to you. They'll do imaging as well for you, and then custom labels. Now, custom labels is something fairly recent from CGC. They have a select number of characters. I've mostly only seen Marvel, but I don't know if there's DC characters as well or not. But there are a select bunch of characters that you can have that image added to the label. I don't know if it adds any value to it. Maybe if push comes to shove, two books are, you know, the same grade and everything else. Maybe you like the look of the character on the label a little bit better. You might be a little bit more inclined. How much more are you willing to pay for it? Well, it's going to cost you $5 to have that added to the book. The Signature Series, again, same setup, same services that are offered, difference being the price is higher. Here on the Signature Series, these are going to be, you have the comic is being signed and it's witnessed, and this is that additional cost that's coming in here, that's being reflected here. Now, what if you have a book that's not witnessed with CGC? They have no authentication services. Instead, you're going to pay the regular CGC professional grading service price, but instead you're going to get what's called a green label. And that means that that green label is a conditional grade. It's basically they're going to say, oh, this book's a 9.8 but it also has somebody wrote their name in ink on the cover. And that's what a signature will look like. It'll say somebody's name is signed in a marker on the cover. So basically they'll go ahead and grade the book, assuming that wasn't there. They'll note that it is there and give it a conditional grade. That's not necessarily always desirable by some people. Some people don't care. If it's just for your collection, you may not care. In addition to their normal grading services, they also offer pressing services. Pressing is broken down again based on whether it's modern book, Silver Age book, how much the value of the book is, how fast you want it turned around, etc. And so those are going to come into play here again in their pricing that they mark out. Additional fees are available for fast tracking it. When we look at their membership tiers, they have 4 membership tiers. The first one is free. Free membership is extremely restricted. Essentially, you get access to their online resources, and you can submit books to be graded at a show. That is it. Right now, in the age of COVID and no shows happening, they have loosened that up a little and allowed free members to submit books directly to them for various signing events. But essentially, free membership, you normally would not be able to send books to them directly. You would have to be attending a show that they're at and drop them off with them. Associate members at $25 a year, you would get the ability to submit books to them directly. You would get free access to your grader notes for the books that you submit, and you would get a 5% discount on their CGC grading prices. Only off the grading services, not off of other services. They're also going to send for new members one small shipping kit, and this is something new that CGC has come up with. Is after seeing lots of people send a bunch of books to them wrapped in anything from toilet paper to God knows what, they decided that they would create shipping kits that would give you basically the Gemini mailers and the bubble wrap and some instructions on how to prepare your book to ship it in there with minimizing the risk of damage to your books. So new members at the $25 level will get a small kit, and that's for shipping like a couple of books in. Premium members are going to get a large kit. They're going to get a 10% discount off their grading services, and most importantly, you're going to get a $150 credit with CGC. So this membership is meant for people who are sending books on a more regular basis to them. You're going to benefit not only from a higher discount, but your membership fee is going to be credited back to you. So the ROI is there right away as long as you use that $150 within the year on grading services, because it does not roll over from one year to the next. Now, that's not a big deal using $150 credit, as you know, at $20 a book, or even at a discounted price, 10% discount, you're paying $18 a book. $18, that's 10, at 7 books, 8 books, you're paid for by yourself there. So my math is poor, so don't judge me on that one off the top of my head. The elite membership for people who are sending in lots of books, you got a 15% discount. You're still getting that $150 credit, but you get some other exclusive benefits. This is pretty much somebody who's just doing tons and tons of business with them, or a comic book shop or something, kind of doing the elite membership. Most people are taking advantage at that $149 level. We take a look over at PGX now. PGX has no membership fee, nor do they break out their pricing based on the value of the comic until you get to $4,000. Once you get greater than $4,000, there is a 1.5% of the fair market value fee that is assessed on top of the stated grading cost, with a cap. So grading a book that's valued more than $4,000, the maximum would be $500 on top of the 13, so $513. So that's pretty. I mean, I don't. If you're a high-end collector and you have those high-end books, you can cross that bridge, and you're going to pay that much or more at the other services anyways as well. So, but anything under that, basically you're paying $13 for a modern book, $20 for a standard Silver Age book, and $28 for a Golden Age books. They're going to have a 30-day turnaround, 30 business day turnaround time as their standard return. So when you send in a book, they're going to receive it. They're going to get back to you roughly in about 30 days. These are all estimated on all these services, subject to change. PGX will usually email you once they receive them with a estimated date that your product should be shipping back to you. Any of their books you can upgrade to half that time, 10 to 12 business days, for just $6 more. So a modern book, $19, you're back in your hands in 10 to 12 days. Silver Age, going to be $26. You can do next day grading, which is 3 business day turnaround time. I'm not sure how that math works. Obviously, they must be talking about the grading is next day, but they still need a couple days for processing. Buyer beware with that name is a little confusing, but it's a 3 business day turnaround time. Pre-screening for grades, like everybody else, all the services, same price, $5. Modern Press and Clean, they do have their in-house pressing and cleaning service, whereas like CGC's is out of a house. Sorry, not outhouse. I don't want to send my comic books to the outhouse. Ugh. Anyways, the Modern Press and Clean service in-house, so it doesn't require any additional lead time, according to PGX. All the other services, even the CBCS and EGS, which do have in-house, their times are cumulative, or they stack. PGX was the only one who said no. The times are not cumulative; it's inclusive. So whether you want to have it press and clean, it's still 30 business days on a standard thing. Just only now it's additional charge for the press and clean. They do a pre-screen for the press and clean like CBCS, only they don't charge for that. So it behooves you, in reality, to never leave a grade on the table and indicate that you want the book pre-screened for pressing and cleaning. Because if it's not going to benefit, then you're not going to get charged for that pre-screening. If it is going to benefit, you're going to pay for that pressing, $13. Big difference on a book between if it's a 9.6 or a 9.8. On almost any book of value, that $13 is going to be returned to you as soon as you turn around and sell that book, because that value is that huge steep drop there. Don't leave your grade on the table. Signature and art authentication. So here's the same thing. You got a signature on a book. It's not witnessed. PGX has their system that they're going to utilize to authenticate the signature for $15. Additional signatures $10. The art they're talking about like remarks and whatnot on comics. Witnessed signatures at events that they're at, $8. And then, of course, recasing and graders' notes are available for free on their website. But if you want to have them included on the back of the slab, it can be put on the back of the label. It's $5 more. They're currently listing. They currently don't even reference it on their website. It's something that they're doing when you talk to them. It's kind of a secret/beta program that they're testing and evaluating at this time. Their label is not properly set up for the grader's notes. So if you have just one or two sentences of grader's notes, it fits in there okay. If you have a long list, because your book is a graded like a 4 or 5 book and it has a laundry list of defects that are being listed out, then it's going to be kind of split around their logo. Eventually, if they go to make this a permanent offering, then they're going to have to redesign their logo. EGS is the new kid on the block. They have the grading service in raw format as well as encapsulated format. So raw grading is that you would send a book to them, they would evaluate it, give you grader's notes, assign a grade to it, but they would not seal it in the hard plastic. Instead, it's going to go into like a Mylar bag with a seal on that bag and send that back to you. It's only $10 for that. That's potential value for you if you have, maybe you just want to get, but you have a bunch of old Silver Age stuff or old books that you want to sell, and you want to have a value assigned to them when you're selling them from this independent party, because you're probably going to make back on many times, especially on a higher value book. I would suspect you're going to have more to make your $10 back by having that third party attesting, saying that this book, if you can imagine, like the first appearance of Punisher, somebody who just lists that it's a very good, I think it's an 8.5 to a 9.0 book, how much are you going to get for it based off of you, Joe Blow, the seller, saying that, versus saying this book has been, inspected by this third-party service and they have assigned this grade to it. As a buyer, that assigns a little more confidence in me that that's the actual condition of the book than another. Others may not feel that way, but there are trade-offs to that, and it is because it's not an encapsulated book. It's a snap. How reliable is that? Once that seal's broken, to look at it, look at the book or anything else, now it's no longer the case. It's not gonna. Somebody doesn't store the book properly because it's not in that rigid platform. It could change the grade. So, it's up to you to decide whether or not it's right for you. Their expert certified and expert certified premier have to do with simply turnaround times. A 14-day turnaround time is their standard for turnarounds on books. So if you want a book fast, 14 days, EGS is there to help you out. Modern books at $20, silver and gold books at $25, 7-day business turnaround for $35 and $40. Then you go to a 3 to 5 business day and a 1 to 3 business day turnaround time for even more money. Their expert certified signature service is going to be $8 for a witnessed and $10 for a verified. They also are going to have the ability to authenticate a signature that was not witnessed for only $2 more at that $10 fee, and it's a 14-day turnaround. That 14 days is a cumulative turnaround time, so that means that if you have the book being authenticated, it's 14 days, and now you're having it graded, that's another 14 days. So keep that in mind. They do pressing on books. That is, again, also another 14-day add-on to it. That is going to cost you $13 for the modern pressing, and for older books, it's going to cost you $20. Okay. And then they have also, you can charge an extra fee if it's also being cleaned as well. Now, EGS does actually offer a customized label as well. So that label is going to not be characters, but it's colors. You can see down here, down the right side here, some samples of that they show on their website of some of these different colored labels. So instead of the traditional blue, yellow, and whatever color you might be used to seeing, you could get a green and purple. You can get pink. You can get black. You can get whatever you want. Essentially, they got leopard print. They've got all kinds of things. So if you're making displays for your wall and you really just want that label to either complement or make that comic book pop or something, these customized labels could help you to achieve that value. Now, The downside is, from a standard collector, they're going to look at a book and not know what it means. Um, Everyone's used to thinking that blue means a particular thing, or that green means a certain thing. And if they see a green label, they might think that it's a conditional grading, and even though it might be a signature, authenticated signature, but because you put a custom label on there, it may be more confusing. Just keep that in mind when you're deciding what you want to do. And again, this is where it really comes down to is, why are you having your books slabbed? What are you going to do with them? If it's for your personal collection, then things like this might matter to you. If it's not for your personal collection and you're just going to flip them, then this is probably not the thing for you. This option is a $5 option for you. And I do want to go back and correct. I'm seeing my own text on the screen is wrong from what I said. So their turnaround time for cleaning and pressing service is a maximum of 21 business days, not 14 business days. Just so we're clear on that. So that's the EGS. Let's go ahead now and take a look at some different scenarios. When we see, we're going to compare each of these different grading services in some different scenarios. This particular one, we're going to do our economy comparison. We have no membership fee. We're not a member with any of these grading services. It's a modern book. It's a fair market value book of $150 or less, and we're not paying to expedite the service. Okay. With that, we're going to note a couple things. We're going to identify PGX is the least expensive straight out of the gate from just a straight grading service, and EGS is the fastest turnaround time right out of the service. PGX being the slowest and CGC being the most expensive. But you might say, Rob, wait a second. I saw CGC was only $20. Why are you listing at $28? Well, that's because while all of these companies are going to require you to provide a submission form, CGC's actually going to charge you a handling fee for that form. They're going to charge you $8 for every paper form you send in and $5 for a digital form. So in this particular scenario, because you're not a member, the assumption is that you're using the paper submission form. Now, if you do have access to the digital form as a free member, well then, and you submit that, then just reduce that down to $25. It would still be the most expensive of the grading services. When you start to add cleaning, pressing and cleaning, then of course you have your press and clean service fee that gets added onto there. Keep in mind with CGC, in this particular scenario, we're looking at just one book. If we had two books we were submitting and only one of them needed a press and clean, that would be two different submission forms for CGC because their pressing service is out third party. That said, that's a separate form and a separate submission fee form. So you could be paying $16 for the combined for two paper form submissions. Total cost here with our one book example, $26, PGX being the least expensive and the fastest turnaround time. They go from slowest to fastest because they don't have that cumulative add-on for having that press and clean on their added to their time. Keep in mind also certain things when it comes to these. These are all targets and they can be off. For example, CBCS, we're going off of the timeline that they provided on their website. When speaking to CBCS, they said that their pressing service is way behind right now. So do not expect a 10 to 12 week turnaround time if you're submitting in July of 2020 when this is being recorded. That can change, but I'm going based off what they have on their website. So 50 to 60 days here, 85 days at CGC, and 30 days PGX, 35 at EGS. This is without paying for any expedited services. Of course, we did mention at PGX, and we looked at this first one where they were the cheapest. For that extra $6, we could make them go from the slowest to one, right in there with everybody else with a or the fastest at 12-day turnaround time by adding $6, they would then be at $19, which puts them pretty much, only $1 more than CBCS and cheaper than by $1 than EGS and having the fastest turnaround time. So it all depends upon how fast you want the book and how much you're willing to spend in this particular scenario. So we take a look now at the economy scenario on a Silver Age book. So what we're changing here is we're going to an older book, and the fair market value on this book is increasing to $260. In this particular scenario, what we have, again, is we're still having our submission form cost that's being added to CGC. And then keep in mind with all these CGC things, as you're not a member, you're having to walk in to an event that they're at unless you're submitting it through a local comic book shop. That local comic book shop may be charging you an upcharge, or they may charge you just what the list rates are for CGC and collect the difference between their discount and the CGC list rates as their margin. Your LCS is going to vary, right? So anyways, in this particular scenario, our cost of grading goes up across the board. PGX remains our lowest. Our fastest remains EGS at 14 days. And when we start looking at adding, pressing, and cleaning, that's where we have a huge difference. The CGC, which before was only an $8 difference on a press and clean on a modern book, once we get to this fair market value $260 on a Silver Age book, all of a sudden it almost doubles the cost of the PGX when we go from 86 to 45. And the turnaround time jumps to 100 days compared to the 30 days we still sit at with the PGX. So that's a huge difference. Not saying that PGX is better. This is simply saying that they're quicker and less expensive. Remember, better is subjective, and this is all about finding what fits your needs. All right, let's take a look at another scenario here where we have a signed book comparison, right? Again, no membership fees, modern book, fair market value $260, pressing only, no expedited service here, right? So when we look at this scenario here, no witness on the book, again, grading service pricing really isn't changing here. $34, $28, $13, $20. The difference is going to be here. We're looking at our authentication, $25 authentication for CBCS for a non-witnessed book. It's going to not be available for CGC. $15 for PGX and $10 for EGS. So your total cost is going to be cheapest with PGX at $41, and then most expensive is CBCS. At CGC, you're going to be at $68, and you're going to get the green label. So the green label is basically, as we've talked about, it's just going to simply say that there's a conditional grade and somebody's name is written on the book. Okay, turnaround times, nothing really changing from some of our others. Now we'll go down to our witnessed books, and this means that a authorized witness of the grading service is going to be there present to watch the book be signed. Now this is usually done either at a convention or at one of their a signing event that's either directly at their facility or at a partner facility where they have witnesses available to watch the books all be signed. Keep in mind that not all these services or all these grading services aren't always at all the conventions. Some conventions have exclusive deals with one service or another. So just FYI. Authentication, CBCS, $5, cheapest there is. $8 for EGS and PGX, and in CGC it's variable, but for the most part we're including it in the grading of the book itself as far as CGC goes. Where the variability comes into play has to do with sometimes there are witness fees. If you're at an event, sometimes that third party may be charging a fee for them to witness the book on behalf of CGC. So that could potentially add on to the cost. The total there across the board, then you're talking about $69 or anywhere from $34 with PGX to $80+ with CGC, and of course your turnaround time as we've stated. That's been a whole bunch of stuff with non-memberships, but let's take a look at membership. How does that impact this? Well, if you're going to invest in membership, the assumption here is that you're going to be sending books on a fairly regular basis. So in this case, I'm going to assume that we're just going to send 3 books per month on average. So over the course, that's 36 books over the course of the year. Whether you send them once a month or whether you send them all at once, it really doesn't matter. It doesn't change the price that we're doing, but just for our example. Based on that, we've gone ahead and figured out what the best price membership level is for you. We're figure assumption of 3 books on average. All of them are modern books. All of them with a fair market value of less than $200. And in this particular scenario, we're not pressing or doing anything else. Let's just find out raw, quick, dirty grading. What's it going to run us, right? So our membership fees, we have the $100 membership fee for the CBCS, CGC, because we're going to be doing more than a couple books, we go to the $149 level, which means we're going to get that $150 credit, which we'll be able to use on our grading. PGX and EGS, there are no membership levels. At the membership levels specified here, we're paying $16 per book for grading with CBCS. We have a discounted $18 per book with CGC. We have $13 is our normal price with PGX and $20 with EGS. Our monthly cost, as we're averaging this out, so this is our 3 books times the per book grade, so $48.59. Now the 59. Keep in mind, this now goes back to including our form submission. So we're essentially saying that we're submitting at 3 books at a time, or 3 books a month. We're submitting one form that's one $5 digital submission added on to this. Now, if you were to still do paper submission, then that would increase this cost actually to $62 for every 3 books you're doing based on this scenario. The only time that this would obviously change is if you're doing all 36 books all at once, then you would only have potentially the one form. But can you get all books on one form? No, so you're going to have more than one form. But let's not get into that. PGX $39 and $60 with EGS. Our gross annual cost, so we're not factoring in any kind of discounts or anything that we're getting other than the per book grading cost. You can see there that obviously your annual cost is slowest with your company's or PGX at $468, which has no membership fee. But interestingly, CBCS at $676 is going to save you about $50 over EGS, which has no membership fee. So spending that $100 with CBCS is going to save you $50 on from EGS, and that's a net. That's a true $50 savings. So interesting. Now our net annual cost. Net annual cost is going to remove additional discounts. So in this scenario, in CBCS, we dropped to $665. Where does that $11 come from? That comes from their CBCS rewards. Remember, you're getting 2 points for every dollar you spend. Every 100 points is used for a $1 discount on grading services. So $48 a month, you're spending 12 months, 2 points per. That's going to give you 1,152 points, which is going to equate to an $11 discount over the course of the year. Hence, your net cost is $665. In the case of CGC, we're getting that $150 credit for paying the $149 membership. So that's going to reduce our cost down to $707. PGX, there's nothing, so we still stay at $468. And EGS, there's nothing, so we stay at $720. So you now see that EGS is the most expensive grading service over the course of the year in this scenario. Now, they are going to have the fastest turnaround time, so if fast turnaround time and the ability to customize your labels is important to you, then EGS may be the way you want to go and paying that extra. It's not a huge difference between them and CGC. But if you want the least expensive, you're sending bulk, then PGX might be the value for you. CGC and CBCS, well, the majority of the people, those are the 1 and number 2 grading service from a number of books graded standpoint. out there. And so from a standpoint of resale value, are potentially going to have a higher resale value. So those all things that factor into this. Now you also are going to get some other things. You're going to get a couple. CBCS is going to give you a couple e-coupons that are going to give you some upgrades and whatnot on some of your grading services, and CGC is going to get you that free shipping kit is at least your first year that you're a member. After that, you're on your own, and of course, you're not going to get anything else from PGX and EGS. So that's the your best value. Now, I mean, you can go, what's the lowest price membership fee, but then that doesn't make any sense if you're sending books over and over again, because at that lower tier, essentially everything stays the same for everybody except for CGC, where you spend less up front because you only pay that $25, but you lose that $150 discount. So at the end of the day, it ends up costing you more money if you're going to be shipping on a regular basis with CGC. CGC, that $25 membership really is just for somebody who is going to send a few books every once in a while. Otherwise, it's just not the right service for anyone to use. A couple other things to note when we looked at all this, right? So when we pre-screen for pressing, this is going to allow you to determine whether a book will be improved before, based on if it's pressed, will you have a chance of getting a better grade? PGX does not charge for this option, but you have to request it. They don't do it automatically. That's a good value. CBCS and EGS charge $5 for this option. They will apply that $5 charge towards any book that is pressed and only charge you the $5 for any book that's not pressed. CGC does not have this option. It's a third-party pressing service. Label customization. You can make your label unique. CGC offers a limited number of characters. You add that character to the label for $5. EGS offers the custom labels, colors, so you can play Barbies with your comics, and that's fine and dandy. Make that book pop, $5. PGX is doing that testing with the grader's notes. If you want to have your grader notes added right to the book, it's $5. CBCS has an art label for one-of-a-kind sketches or books that you don't necessarily, have remarks and stuff done on them that you don't necessarily want to assign a grade to. So if you had a sketch cover and an artist did a really nice cover to you, they're going to handle that book a lot. That book may lose its grade. It may not be a 9.8 because it's been handled so many times, and you don't necessarily want that grade to detract from that book. I mean, it's a one of a kind anyways, so why have it graded with a value necessarily? You can have it graded or evaluated as an art label, so they'll validate the authentication that the artist did the book and all this other stuff and encapsulate it for you, but it'll, where the score would be, instead of saying a 9.4 or something, it's just going to say art. So that's an option that's available to you through CBCS. Grader's notes, which explains why the book received the grade it was. CBCS has provided grader notes on their website free of charge to anyone, and you can use your smartphone to scan the QR code on the back label of their books, and it will bring up the grader notes for that book. That is free, and it's available to anyone on any book that's been graded by CBCS. EGS provides their grader notes on a certificate that comes with the book. So you'll get this little paper certificate that you've got to keep track of. It is cross-referenced by serial number to the book, but you do get those notes right then and there. You don't have to go look them up. It's provided to you. You just got to keep track of them. PGX provides grader notes for free on request through their web portal. And you can have them printed on the label for $5 right now while they're testing it. Again, it's a beta thing, so that may go away, or pricing may change, any number of things. But for now, it's available as a $5 option. CGC provides grader notes to the members for the items that they submitted for grading. They charge $5 to $15 for items that you did not submit. So this includes your own books that you brought to your LCS and had your LCS submit on your behalf. You do not have access to those grader notes. Now, your LCS may be nice and be able to pull those up and provide them to you, but I don't. That's not a guarantee, right? The other caveat is with CGC, grader's notes are not available on all items. It is the grader's discretion as to whether or not they log and preserve the grader notes. This is more prevalent, I have heard, and take this for what it is, on more recent high grade books. Older books that, sevens, sixes, where they're more likely to have extensive graders notes, those are much more likely to have been logged and everything else. But books that are like 9.8s, 9.6s that don't really have a lot of information on them to begin with are not as likely, apparently, to have these grader notes. CGC just simply says it's up to the grader's choice. So there you are.
Recap here, right? Essentially is, you know, all the services, all these guys offer a third party grading service. If you're into that and you're interested, you've got to decide for yourself at the end of the day, why are you grading it? How much am I going to grade? And what's the ultimate thing I'm after? If you're looking for the highest resale price on the book, if you're in this to sell the comic book, well, right or wrong, CGC typically is thought of by most collectors as the, since they're the one of the first, they are and they're the biggest, they're considered the gold standard, and your book is probably, not always, but probably going to return maximum value with a CGC book versus say an EGS book. um, or PGX, right? Um, Different services that are available, with when it comes to signature verification, maybe something that plays into your decision on where I send my book at any given time. Um, you know, the slab itself. I mean, if you go watch the EGS slab is very different than the other three: CBCS, CGC, and PGX. The EGS slab is completely different. So maybe that might be a reason why you want to or not want to use it. I'm going to hang them on a wall. Okay, do they offer any kind of UV protection? Some of them do, some of them don't. So that might be a factor that kind of goes into what you're doing on the book. Maybe you're just sending it off to preserve it, and it's an archival function. In which case, maybe you just want the cheapest. That could be a reason to go with a particular grading service over another. Maybe there isn't any good reason. You're just going to play spin the bottle with the four different grading services and send them out randomly. Either way, I hope that this information is somewhat useful if you've been thinking about using a grading service. Obviously, if you've been using them, maybe this was just entertaining for you and you're wasting some time and what the hell, in which case, great. I appreciate you. But, the concept of this is really kind of I put this together to help educate, on the different services, so you know what's out there, so you can go into it and try to make an informed decision for yourself, um, as to what services are available, what that cost is likely to be, and go out there and have some fun. If slamming comics is for you, I tell you, it's almost like a drug for me now. It's like sending books and chasing that um, grade. What am I going to get? Let's get so excited when those boxes come. The next whole round is then deciding what books do you want us to have slabbed. That's kind of going to come into play for you, right? So, for me, I'm sending off books. If my books are signed, I'm getting them signed. I'm getting them certified. If my books are um, limited edition, variants, low print runs with COAs and stuff where there's like only 600 of this book or whatever. Oftentimes, I'm having that slabbed to preserve it. I want to maintain that highest possible grade. On some of my older stuff, I'm slabbing it to preserve it for quality. Because I'm sorry, a book from 1960, that newsprint's 50 something years old. It's not going to last forever. I want to archive it and preserve it and maintain it as much as I can. Um, and then there's a lot of common books that I'm not going to do anything with. They're not going to get slabbed unless all of a sudden speculators go nuts on it, and all of a sudden I go, oh, hey, look, this book's now all of a sudden worth $300. Oh, let's go slab it. What the hell? Anyways, that's just me. Why do you slab books? Leave a comment below. Do you like slab books? Do you prefer them raw? The questions. All right, guys. I'm rambling at this point. This video has been long enough. Uh, Please, again, hit the like button. Leave me your comments below. Did you think this was interesting? Check out the comments again to the link to this presentation if you want to review it on your own. And if there's any errors or anything you see or corrections or whatever, again, leave your comment. I'll come back to this periodically, and I'll update the deck. At least for a little bit. Um, not into in perpetuity anyways, but and hit that subscribe for your chance to win a free slabbed comic once we get to the 100 subscriber mark. I have no idea what book it's going to be, but it'll be a nice book, something of value. I'll at least a $50 value, um, minimum, not counting the slabbing costs. So anyways, there you go. Thank you, guys. Remember, collect what you like. Um, don't let anybody tell you one thing's better than another. It's all subjective. It's all your opinion. And me, I'm just a fat guy with a fat stack of comics and a fat opinion. So have a great day.